Jon Sicotte, executive editor of Brewer. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics. You can go to keglogistics.com/Brewer Mag for more details. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to the Brewer Podcast. We're here on both YouTube and on Spotify, and of course, 24 hours a day. We are available at brewermag.com. And number one, I want to remember before I forget, thank you so much to Ava Redmond for sending my microphone back to me. Left it on vacation and we stopped in Petoskey, Michigan. It kept at the hotel, and the hotel called me back about an hour and a half after we left saying there's a microphone here, and Ava was nice enough to pick it up and mail it to me, so better sound for me right now. Well, I wanted to get into this. Every brewery has a success story, of course. Far fewer are willing to talk openly about the decisions that didn't go as planned, though. This is one of those conversations. Now, in our latest digital edition, we focused on New Orleans' Urban South Brewery. You can see the cover there. I was just there a few months back for the interview and sat down with co-founders Jacob Landry, Kyle Huling, and we dug into the business decisions that helped grow Urban South from a New Orleans startup into one of the South's better-known regional craft breweries. We're going to talk about, and you'll hear some of this, about why they believed a craft brewery needed an approachable flagship lager, and that one, Paradise Park, is now becoming a part of New Orleans culture without actually sacrificing the brewer's craft identity, along with why they were comfortable with hearing people call it the Miller Lite of New Orleans. Well, in the article, you can read Jacob and Kyle also explaining how their MBA backgrounds influenced everything from financial modeling and hiring to using market data instead of assumptions when doing product decisions. And just as importantly, they don't shy away from discussing difficult moments that happened there. They talk about their Houston expansion that didn't work, how COVID immediately changed the trajectory of that project, and how they learned about branding and real estate, organizational capacity, scaling multi-location breweries, and what they want to do later, along with how those experiences have reshaped the way they evaluate all those future growth opportunities. So here's my interview with Urban South Brewery co-founders Jacob Landry and Kyle Huling on the Brewer Podcast. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
We were pretty ambitious from the start, so we looked for a big warehouse. We found a 40,000 square foot warehouse. We leased half of it initially, but had the right of first refusal on the second half. And about, three years
months?
in?
Yeah.
Well, within the first year, someone tried to lease it, so we had to grab it. Our landlords were very friendly with us and gave us some good terms. And then about 3 years later, we moved into that second half. And now we're busting at the seams.
Is that crazy to think, though? Because when you start, obviously you can have ambition, but it still has to be able to grow to that. What made you confident in doing that?
Well, at the time, there was one brewery in New Orleans, and there was a Beta, of course, and they have a 30-year head start on us, I guess. But, I'd lived in other parts of the country. Kyle had worked in craft beer for 10 years and had kind of seen the growth, and we felt like New Orleans was really poised for having a brewery of its own in town that really focused on distribution and volume. So I'd actually used New Brewer magazines and looked at volume growth over the last 5 years of some key breweries, and I still have the highlighted pages from that. And I said, we want to emulate these breweries. We want to get to 15,000 barrels within 5 years. And, I thought there was runway for it. I think Kyle agreed.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that surrounding states, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, they all had breweries that had done it before. And so we knew that if we made really good beer and had a great marketing plan and a great distributor, that there was no reason we couldn't do the same thing.
And that's the thing right there, the plan at the time. Who were you looking at? Did you go talk to them? Did you visit them? Did you, because that's what this industry is about, is learning from others and then emulating it where you are.
Yeah, Lazy Magnolia was one, and Tallgrass was one, And it's been interesting too to see sort of the different trajectories of some of the breweries that we were looking to emulate. And one thing that really benefited us, because those breweries grew by going really far and wide. And I think the breweries that went really far and wide and had a pretty thin layer but really wide are ones that have struggled more recently. And timing really helped us out because pretty quickly we saw that there was opportunity in our backyard. And so we tried to go deep in our backyard. So we were Louisiana only for the first 3 years. And we really wanted to get to some depth here before we went out of state. And I think that laid a really strong foundation that maybe some of these other fast-growing breweries didn't have. And I think is a big part of why we're 10 years in, we're still doing well.
Where did you guys meet? And how did it come to where we're sitting today?
Well, so Jacob had been building the business plan for a couple of years, and he got to a point where he was ready to start vetting it with folks in the distribution world, and so we had a mutual contact on LinkedIn. He reached out to me, asked if he was interested in meeting. We met at a local bar, Bulldog, and he showed us the plan. And that was about almost 3-4 years before we opened.
Right, 3 years.
3 years. A year later, reached back out and said, "Hey, look, I've now left my job. I'm really doing this brewery," because being on the distributor end of things, and you hear so many people say, "I'm opening a brewery, and you have all these meetings, and it's like, sure you're opening a brewery. And after that first meeting, I was like, this guy's for real. Like, he knows what he's talking about. He's done his research. Came back a year later, said, "Hey, I've left my job. I'm going to move forward with it. I'm actually, I'm looking for somebody with this experience. And he was basically reading my resume to partner with me on this. And I went home, talked to my wife, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he was asking me if I wanted to be a part of this. So I think it was almost 24, 48 hours, I called him and I said, "Hey, you want to meet up for a cup of coffee?" And we sat down and worked it out.
How much of that plan is kind of ended up being a part of the plan versus what you guys are, not now, but maybe in those first few years?
I mean, really, we exceeded what we'd mapped out. We talked about getting to 15,000 in 5 years. I think we were there in 3 years. And, so it read ambitiously to anyone who was in the industry at the time. But, we knew enough to know that, I think we not only can accomplish what we wrote down, we can probably exceed it. Now, the financial side of it, things end up costing more than maybe you thought they would. And so I don't know if the true profitability was exactly what was mapped out, but the volume and now I will say one thing that was different was we assumed we were going to have to go multi-state quickly to get the volume, and we didn't. And that, really grateful for that, from what I previously said. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a pretty well vetted, well written plan, and we were able to kind of exceed a lot of parts of it.
Did the state dictate what you guys could do here? Like, I know there's so many state laws on the books, probably when you were opening, that made you think we have to be a production mindset, because we're not going to be able to open up a small tap room.
Yeah,
be able to
100%. When I first started putting the plan together, manufacturing breweries, so breweries and distribution, could only sell 10% of what they were making out of their tap room. So for a startup brewery, that's nothing. Yeah. You couldn't count on the tap room being a driver of your business. Now, I worked for 2 years. We had in 2 different legislative sessions to change the law before we were open. So, in fact, we finally changed it in 2015 so that you could sell 3,000 barrels a year or 10%, whichever is greater. So that law change, by that point, it was too late to change our business model. So we still were buying we'd already ordered a 30-barrel brew house. Yeah. We were still going to go into this giant warehouse. We still weren't spending a ton of money on the aesthetics of the warehouse. So we still kept with the same business model, but it really allowed us to lean into the retail side And then for our industry locally, it's single-handedly quintupled the number of breweries in the state because, previously it just didn't make sense to open a brewery because you really couldn't have a tasting room.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about, the style, the look, who you guys are. How do you quickly tell someone who Urban South is and why you chose between the name and the colors, the style, like how do you guys brand yourselves and who are you?
I'll let you start with that.
Well, Urban South came about because at the time NOLA Brewing was the only brewery in New Orleans, and I had ambitions to go beyond Louisiana, so I didn't want to be too colloquial. I didn't want to have a fleur-de-lis on our logo. I wanted it to be a little more universal, something that could play in the Southeast. And so we went through 20 different names and working with a trademark attorney to try to figure out what would work. And finally, I just thought about my wife's from South Carolina, I'm from Louisiana. We, after college, lived in Seattle and then Hawaii and then Seattle. But we wanted to move back here we looked at New Orleans, we looked at Nashville, we looked at Raleigh. And I started to think about why we were attracted to all of those places. And we love the pace of life. We love the people. We love the kind of modern contrast between, some bad history, but also this optimistic outlook on the future. And I was like, what is it that defines all of these places? And it was like, well, those are the Urban South. I mean, we would have been comfortable kind of in any number of those cities that all represented sort of the contradiction of the old and the new and hospitality. And so when that name clicked, we ran that through all the ringers and it seemed like it would work. And I thought it was a good embodiment of what we wanted the brand to represent, kind of an ode to the past, but nothing holding us back from being a modern company. And that's what we try to do with our beer styles. We do some traditional, beer styles, but we're also, Paradise Park is never going to win GABF medal because we use whole melon hops and it's got a little bit of a fruity note and it's not a classic traditional American lager. It's got a twist to it. Holy Roller, we leaned in pretty early to make it a hazy New England IPA, which was pretty avant-garde at the time. It's pretty common now, but so we want it, to really be welcoming to anyone who walks in. We want anyone who walks in this building to find something that they're going to like. And we tell our bartenders, really, there's plenty of places, and we've been to some of the breweries where if somebody walks up and orders a Bud Light, they're going to make you feel stupid. And we're not that place. Yeah, we're gonna gently and kindly lead you to a Paradise Light, but we're not beer snobs. We never set out to be beer snobs. We're not making beer for untapped ratings. We're making beer for maximum enjoyment.
And we actually went through a rebrand end of 2019, beginning of 2020. The original logo was very traditional, very rustic, and it really fit when we opened. We had some traditional styles of beer, and as we were progressing over the years, we started making a lot more non-traditional beers with heavily fruited, lots of adjuncts, super hazy double IPAs, and so the branding didn't fit the beers that we were making. And so that's why you see some bright, vibrant colors now, is because we were making vibrant, fun, exciting beers, and so we wanted to make sure that the brand matched what we were making.
Did the consumer dictate that? Did you see just how things were selling? What made you go, this is what we were going to be after those first few years, and now we have to adapt the look to it as well? Like, where did that all come?
That was a little bit more internal. That we just, as we were trying to develop, and really during the pandemic, we're making hundreds of beers to release out the tap room, and we're working with our in-house team that designs all our labels, and we're like, wow, it's really hard to convey this beer that we're making with the branding that we have, with a very sharp-edged shield at the time, and very old classical fonts and stuff. And so it was really difficult for our marketing team to align the beer and the brand. And so we said, all right, we've got got to make sure everything's aligned at that point.
We look to some of our peers too. I mean, we look at New Belgium, for example, and kind of have seen how, like, every so often over a brand's life, cycle, there's some updates and there's some evolution to the brand, to the styling. And so we were 5 years in. We had a little extra capacity on our team because of the pandemic. We weren't out selling the way that we used to sell. Our marketing team, priorities had shifted. So we had some time, capacity, and our brand lineup had grown significantly. We started with 3 beers, and now, at that point, we probably had 8 different beers in distribution, and they all were individually branded, and we saw it as an opportunity to bring a more cohesive look to it that, when the consumer sees our beer on the shelf, they'll recognize it as an Urban South beer despite what brand it is. So it was also just evolutionarily something we thought needed to happen.
Can branding have a shelf life? You feel like what you guys have now is something you're already like, okay, it's good now, but we're going to test the waters in other ways. I mean, is it that you constantly have to think that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly tweaking. I mean, even our main logo, it had, originally it had like an ombre kind of vibe to it. Now we're kind of stepping away from that and using, some of the, more solid colors in the logo. Just because you start seeing it on the shelf, you see it on billboards, and you're like, oh, that's not quite as legible as it is a foot in front of you. And so, yeah, it's a constant tweaking, constantly trying to get better every day.
So with the name Urban South, you don't peg yourself in, like you said, New Orleans. You peg yourself an area. So how far of an area is that for you? Like, do you see a place like, I know I'm in Ohio, so Great Lakes has become, synonymous with Great Lakes. Yet now you see Great Lakes in Florida. Like, can you see Urban South going past the South as a brand?
I don't think we really have ambitions for that. As ambitious as we are, yeah. I think we'd be perfectly happy to be a top 10 brand from Texas to the Carolinas, maybe Virginia, on down to Florida. I mean, that's a huge swath of the country. I don't think you can plan to be a national brand today. I think the door's shut on that. And if we could really be a top 10 brewery in that region, like that's a big brewery, and that's a lot of volume. So, I think that's the region we know. We're very comfortable. We speak the language. I don't need to send our beer to Montana. I think we'd be pretty happy locking ourselves into just that region.
Yeah, it is such an interesting city to be a part of. You feel embraced for being such a cocktail-heavy party city that it can be. You feel that there's people here for you for that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, what was it, Reddit? We had somebody make a comment that Paradise Park is the Miller Lite of New Orleans, and some breweries would turn their nose up at that and say that's not something I want to hear, but we love it. I mean, that means that, you can't walk down Bourbon Street and not see a Paradise Park tap as you're looking into bars and restaurants. And, so much of our economy is tourism. And so to be a part of not only the people that live here, but when they go back home, they remember, Paradise Park or an Urban South beer that they had is pretty special.
Let's go in. I'm drinking it, by the way.
Yeah. Delicious.
And like you said, fruity. It's not a classic American lager, but man, it's awesome. So when did that become this is going to be a flagship and expand into all the different things that it has? Like, what's the progression of Paradise Park?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, data, like using data to drive our decisions. So in year 3, we had grown. Holy Roller was, really strong for us. Like Jacob said, it was 65% of our overall business. And we knew that with the space that we had the ability to grow and grow rapidly. So we're looking at state data on beer sales. And around 95% of the beer consumed in Louisiana at the time was American or European light lagers. And so we're like, we can't turn those customers into craft beer drinkers by making, fruited sours or double IPAs or pale ales, or even, we weren't going to really grow rapidly in the state. So we said we got to make a light lager. And then we couldn't get them to also buy it on the shelf if it was $10.99 a six pack, compared to at the time I think it was $6.99 for a six pack of Bud Light and Michelob Ultra. So we said we've got to be able to make it affordably. And so we worked with our brewmaster at the time, Wes Osier, to develop this recipe for what you're drinking right now, that allowed us to be competitive and price it $1 above domestic pricing. And so when we launched it, it really quickly just exploded into being our number one overall brand, and it became like a fabric of the city, just because it was no other brewery in our area had ever done anything like that. And so it was just a way for folks who, if you like beer, you're going to like this beer. And we, being able to, any age, any festival, any outing, you can take that beer and enjoy it.
What's the you see it growing as this lager? Was the light lager immediately following, and then now there's an IPA, or a seltzer?
There was, yeah.
Yeah. So when you see that, like, you're like, okay, this is the name people know, instead of us coming out with an IPA that they might not associate. That's the thought process right there.
Yeah.
It's like we can capture that market.
And also kind of the no frills, laid back, branding, affordable. And so they all are price aligned on shelf. And so, as we were continuing to think about brands that we wanted to go on to distro, brands like Michelob Ultra were growing like crazy. So as easy drinking and light as that is, we had people that still wanted it lighter. So, we were able to, work a recipe to mirror the calorie, carb content of Michelob Ultra to capture that consumer. We knew that, a brand like All Day IPA was really popular down here, and being able to make a session IPA under the Paradise Park, just brands, certain styles fit under the Paradise Park brand, and that's, what drove us.
Gotcha. Pricing obviously was the key, like we've mentioned a few times, but for a craft brewery, pricing is hard. Like, do you see that as is it a loss leader for you guys? Do you see it as an opportunity to get better with it as you go? Like, I'm sure, have you seen the numbers change a little bit when it comes to either margin or sales go up, you get a little more? How, because you kind of got to step off the ledge for a little bit to do that and see and to wait for the returns.
Yeah, we really put pen to paper to make sure that we could hit that barrelage, and not just that, but can pricing. We do it in 15 packs, so the cardboard, all the grain that goes into it. So, at the time we didn't have a silo. We knew that if the beer took off like we thought it could, that in the future we'd be able to get bulk grain pricing. We knew that if we sold enough of it, we'd be able to order larger quantities of boxes. So there was definitely a gamble there. We were never in the red on the brand. We're in the black, from day one on it. But yes, definitely over time, the economies of scale definitely kicked in on it.
Yeah, it timed up right as we were growing into silo, centrifuge, bulk CO2. So it really, like, that 10,000 barrel mark or so was like Paradise helped us get over that hump, and then all the the raw materials prices plummeted. Once we were able to get over that hump, get better yields, and so it's, from a margin perspective, it's about as good as any of our other beers. Yeah. From a dollar perspective, we're definitely leaving money out there that we intentionally are doing for the consumer. Now, all that being said, it's this moment in time is incredibly difficult to keep pricing the way that we've kept it, and we've resisted, for the last 6 months raising any prices, and it's really, really hard to continue doing. So that's to be seen, kind of what we have to do over the next 12 months. But aluminum has gotten out of control, and fuel costs impact every single thing that we do. So it's a tough moment, from a pricing standpoint.
How did, even going through all of that pen to paper stuff, how has it helped you become a better on the back end of everywhere else? Like, do you see that kind of the positive out of that because of you worked those numbers, you figured things out, you moved towards larger quantities than you could.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, the volume in and of itself helps all of the brewery. I mean, it creates scale that's why I think breweries in that 5,000 to 10,000 barrelage trying to distribute is really hard. I mean, the margins are so tight. It's hard to make money doing that. So getting over that hump and getting all of this scale from a staff standpoint, from a buying power standpoint, from a just margin standpoint is really, really, puts you in a different category. And so that 10 to 20,000, and now at that like 20,000 mark, I feel like we can absorb these ups and downs in a way that other breweries can't. And Paradise Park's a big part of that. Even though we were saying that selling that same volume of Holy Roller, we'd be making a lot more dollars. But really pleased with kind of where we are now in just the breathing room that we have at the scale that we're at.
Let's talk a little bit about the rest of the portfolio then. The Holy Roller, like you said, was a big one. Is it still like when it comes to top 5 sales, probably?
Still number two.
Still number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so how did that kind of you still have other Holy Rollers as well, right? Different versions.
We have a grapefruit version that's in distro, and then we do a double IPA series that kind of loosely based off of. We have one called Unholy Roller, and Holier Than Thou, and so we play a little bit off of that. Not in huge volumes, but we do go to distro with that. Grapefruit's kind of a bigger volume distro version. But yeah, Holy Roller is still, it's a perfect beer for this moment in the IPA category. I think honestly, it's as I travel, I love hazy IPAs. I love to pick them up, and I'm rarely impressed, with in comparison to Holy Roller in terms of a 6-pack that's $10.99. I mean, there's certainly some $20 4-packs that are phenomenal, but in terms of that everyday distro hazy IPA, I think you're hard pressed to find a better tasting beer.
SKU wise, have you had to hold back a little bit, like when it comes to putting stuff into distro and kind of focus on that core of SKUs to go out? Like, how do you determine that?
I mean, the first beer we ever made, it's called Charming Wit. We no longer make anymore. We're starting to get folks asking for it. We're making a non-alcoholic version now. But once again, just my distribution background and using data, like we know when something is slowing down on a shelf, slowing down with our distributor. And before a Rouse's or a Walmart or a Publix can cut it, we're going to replace it with something else. Before a distributor calls us and says, hey, we don't want to carry this brand, it's like, oh, we've already made that decision for you. And they appreciate that. They appreciate that you're looking out for their business, that you're always trying to stay cutting edge, and trying to evolve and make them more money as well.
And we, on our sales team, including Kyle, we've got about 55 years worth of distributor employment experience. So our team, really operates with a distributor first mindset. So when we launch a new market, we launch with 2, maybe 3 SKUs. So we know that distributors are cutting SKUs. We know they're scared to bring on new brands. So we try to make it really easy for them. We tell them, no, we're going to focus on these 2, and 3 months later, we're going to roll in our seasonal, and then we're going to do a slow build over 2 to 3 years. And for most of our distributors, they'll never carry our full portfolio. We make things that you're only going to find in Louisiana just because we can't overwhelm them. Most distributors don't want 12 SKUs from a brewery that's 3 states away. And they appreciate that. They love that. We go into our business plan meetings annually with a plan. with a set finite plan. So this is what we're doing for the next 12 months, and we don't randomly throw a new seasonal at them or a new SKU at them, 3 months into that plan. And that's because so many folks on our team came from that background and really speak the language of the distributor.
That's what I was going to say, because you have that background, you understand that it's not the us versus them mentality that I think sometimes a lot of people that either get started in it or feel like they're being taken advantage of, because they don't understand that side of it. You came in from that side.
Yeah.
Do you feel that was a big advantage for you guys?
Oh, huge. I mean, you've got to make your product as simple to sell for, top to bottom, from the vice president of sales all the way to the guy delivering the beer on the truck. You just got to make yours not the headache. Whether it's the keg collar has got to be, very legible so that the guy picking it in the warehouse knows what to pick or pull it off the truck. All the way to, what's the business plan for the year, and we're going to stick to it. We're not going to deviate. There'll be maybe an occasional deviation on, we said it was going to come out at the end of March, now it's going to come out at the beginning of April, things like that. But make it simple, make their lives easy, and they're going to sell your product for you.
Yeah. How has that changed your taproom strategy then? Because obviously Louisiana is going to be a little different than all the other states for distribution out. But what's the taproom like? Obviously, I can't even count really quick.
27 or so.
27.
I think, yeah.
Okay. Has that been that big? Like, how has the size of the taproom changed?
A lot. Take a look at the timeline wall after this. You can kind of see how it's evolved. I think we started with 8 taps, and they were all variations of two beers. We had a Charming Wit, we had a Shandy, we had Holy Roller, we had Grapefruit Holy Roller, Pineapple, and every year we added some more taps. And so there's probably about half of them that are, our distro beers that are on the line, and then the other 50% of them are just constantly rotating. Some of it are trials for distribution beers that we are interested in, releasing, and some of them are just fun beers that the brewers pitch and they want to make.
When it comes to the back end of it, adding new equipment, pieces of equipment, like how much did you have to invest time to start it? It was like, we can do this right now. Let's just do it.
I mean, that's really what led us into it, because we could do it right away. I mean, it's the same equipment. It's a faster process than making beer. There were a lot of advantages to it. We've learned a lot, and there's a lot of bad product out there that folks who don't have the kind of brewing experience, manufacturing experience that we have. But we just feel like we do that part really well. We put good liquid in cans and distribute it really well. That's like our strength. So this fit right into that strategy and those strengths.
What's the QA for you guys? Like, when did you build the lab, or how much lab work do you do, and then how much more important is it now because of those products?
It took us a while. We didn't have a lab until probably about 5 years in, but now it's pretty well kitted out. We've got an alkalizer. We plate everything that we make. We've got a lot of equipment that I've paid for, and I don't necessarily understand what it does, but
we're people that know how to use it.
Yeah, we've got a lab director, and so we take it a lot more seriously today than we did the first 5 years. And it's relatively safe. The first 5 years, distribution was really tight.
Yeah.
Batches were smaller, and so it's gotten more important. And then as we get into non-alc space, it's got even more critical that we really focus on that. Both for non-alc beer and for the THC seltzers.
So, and then I think hard tea as well, right? Am I missing anything else? Hard tea?
Hard tea.
And non-alcoholic
beer.
beers.
And then I'm drinking, this has just been in the tasting room, but this is called functional beverage with mushroom extracts and non-psychoactive. And so we're starting to just kind of play around with that, explore it. Going to start looking at opportunities for distribution of that as well.
Who's buying it? Who do you see? Like, do you see the numbers of? Is it the people that are already Urban South fans?
Which one? The hemp or
all of them? Like, when you're building that, do you see like, again, I think we were just talking a little bit off camera that, I'm 10 years older. My tastes have changed. Are you seeing people that maybe were fans of you early moving into these things, or do you see new audience pieces?
A little bit of both. I think, for the hemp-derived beverages, I mean, we're seeing a lot of soccer moms, all the way up to grandmothers that are drinking it. The one that we make has, 0 calories, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and so it's a great replacement for that, evening glass of wine that people, tend to have every night. We're also seeing that, as folks are drinking less craft beer, they're not drinking less. They're just shifting it to different products. And as you're getting older, those hangovers last a little bit longer, and so maybe a couple drinking occasions are subbed out from beer to hemp beverages. Also seeing that with the non-alcs, where people are mixing those in non-alc beer into their regular drinking habits. So they'll go out and have 4 beers, but 2 of those will be non-alcoholic beers, so that they're not doing anything irresponsible or waking up the next morning feeling not so good. So
for the hemp, I would say it's exposed us to a lot of new customers. Because and I think we put Urban South, even though you look at our hemp labels and you're not going to see Urban South jumping out at you, it is on the side panel, and so I think for those people who are familiar with this, that's actually comforting. This is a company I know, I trust. I'm gonna buy their product. But I think for the most part, my estimation is that it's new customers. It's a lot of women, and a lot of women who were not drinking much beer. A lot of women who may be drinking White Claw and Truly, or High Noon today, but are drinking not much beer. I think on the non-alc beer side, we just launched that into distribution in January, so it's pretty fresh. I think in that category, we're going to get more folks who we're drinking our beer, but maybe we're drinking a little less these days.
What do you call it? It's funny, all over the country, people call it different things when you're mixing NA with it. What does it have a term here that you hear?
Zebra striping.
Zebra striping, white striping. Yeah, it's funny how it doesn't have a full name yet.
Yeah.
But it's definitely becoming tagged as a thing.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting, because I don't think I would ever think that was the last beer of the night, maybe because you wanted to stay, not I'm going to have it as my second and fourth or whatever that type of thing.
Well, for here in New Orleans, you got Mardi Gras, and it lasts. You're out there the parade route at 8 in the morning. Some people are out there earlier, all the way till 8, 10 o'clock at night. And, you want to be social, but you also want to be responsible, and so mixing in non-alcoholic beers throughout the day is a great way to stay hydrated.
Yeah. It's weird to think the responsibility has changed of a young drinker. How did this happen? It's kind of, I'm sure you guys are probably a little younger than me, but I never thought about being responsible in my 20s. How did that happen?
I think all I know is something's changing. I don't really know why. I think it's I think the parents of that generation have done society a real disservice by not teaching their kids to drink quality alcohol, and the social lubricant aspect of it has started to disintegrate. But I don't know why, but we see it, and we see even when a lot of the younger folk, and we see it at Mardi Gras, we see the trends change. That's when we really see alcohol at volume is Mardi Gras. And I mean, the ascendancy of High Noon has just been unbelievable. The number of pallets at Costco during Mardi Gras. We kind of have held our own in the beer world with Paradise Park particularly, but there's big changes, happening. And
I think historically, people don't want to do the things that their parents did. They weren't cool. We drink craft beer. They didn't drink craft beer. And so, but I do, in the alcohol industry, it's so cyclical. I think at some point, those kids who aren't drinking today, or who are drinking High Noons, tailgating or whatever, at some point they're going to be in the backyard barbecuing, and they're going to be drinking a beer, and hopefully it's a craft beer and one of ours.
I think I just got the press release about this week. You guys have kind of adapted Stratus to be something a little different than it was. What was and that, like you said, is that just the competition part of it that you wanted to be able to find a new avenue for it?
Yeah, we listened to feedback from our distributor. It came out originally, the branding was, very kind of trippy and hypnotic, looking, and that customer base at the time when we launched it, we're thinking, all right, it's going to be a little bit higher in terms of milligrams. It's going to be, people who are experienced in marijuana, and so that's something branding wise that they're going to like. As we're doing samplings in grocery stores, as we're seeing who's buying Drifty, we're seeing that it's not that person. It's the soccer moms, and so it needed to be branded accordingly to be something that they felt fit their personality. And so just the rebrand of that and adjusting the recipe slightly to accommodate that.
Yeah, when you're launching a new product in a category that's brand new, and we don't pay tens of thousands of dollars to survey companies to figure out, so we really had no idea who the demographic is. We're making a lot of assumptions. So we started with Drifty and with Stratus, two very different brandings, thinking we were going to sort of be holistic about who we're hitting. And then we started to realize that we think the key demographic are kind of, women, and so we, dial it back to a much friendlier tone.
So I'm kind of to the end, talk about the future a little bit. Like, we have been talking about the future. It's a lot of what you just talked about, but you guys have expanded, you've retrenched, diversified. What's growth to you guys now?
Well, we're still a beer first company. And so growing beer is really important to us. We've gotten into some new chains as we've gone east. So Publix is now a big part of our business in a way that it wasn't for the first, most of our life as a company. There's some chains in the Carolinas and Georgia that, we're looking towards. So we're going to start looking at that area. So we've got the rest of Florida that we want to fill out in, I'd say, the next 5 years. We've got Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. So that's the territories that we're starting to have some distributor conversations with, and try to sequence what makes the most sense in terms of which state to tackle first. Texas is something that we really are only exposed in the Houston market, and so it's a massive state. H-E-B is a huge player there. So we're doing the diligence that we need to do to try to grow in Texas. So that's all on the beer side, and that's, we've had some conversations about brand acquisitions. We really like the idea, and we haven't closed on anything yet, but we like the idea of a brand that's doing anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 barrels that has, reasonably good distribution with some overlap with our markets, that represents a region or branding that is a good fit with our portfolio. Where the founders are maybe tired and don't really want to fight the distribution business that we think we're good at. So that could certainly be part of the next few years as well. So we're on the beer side. We're still looking for growth, and I think that growth could happen in a combination of ways. It could be brand acquisition and or expanded territory distribution. THC is a bit of a wait and see. Quite a few of our distributors that we're with in beer have not wanted to get into the category, but I think if there's congressional action that actually puts regulations around it, and there's a little more acknowledgement federally that this is truly a category, those distributors will get in, and I think there'll be a lot of opportunity for us to, expand in that direction. So it's a bit of a holding pattern on THC for distribution, because distributors are kind of in a holding pattern. But hopefully, we get the green light to put our foot on the gas on that as well.
Awesome. We really didn't touch much about everyone else. And, you said you guys kind of run the whole show still, but you do have people that work here. How is the employee, like, is there turnover? You guys have kind of the same core group over these last 10 years, and how much does that matter for you guys to have people that are long term? You're not just hired gun, move on, hired
Yeah.
gun, move on.
I mean, I think it's a big part of our success is the team and the culture that I think, we initially established, but that they're, carrying right now through and pass along to the rest of their team, that our staff cares so much about our product and cares so much about our vision and accomplishing our goals. They're huge. I mean, Alex Flores, our director of brewing operation, been with us for 8 years, and anytime we come to him with a change in the schedule, anytime we come to him with an idea for a new brand, it's always met with a can do, like we're going to figure this out, not a struggle with how are we going to accomplish this week. It's like, no, we're going to do it. Rob, our director of packaging operations, same way. He just great attitudes, and they really just want to get the job done.
We've got a gritty team, and it takes that, I think, both in the industry and in New Orleans. I mean, you have to be resilient, and so we've done a big packaging line expansion this year that we 100% did ourselves. We installed we pieced together equipment from brewery auctions, and we've installed that ourselves. Our team has learned how each of these machines works, how to get them working if they're not working, and so we're definitely a do-it-yourself kind of place, and I think that builds just a lot of investment from our employees into like the company and just attachment to the company. And so we're 10 years in, we've got a number of 8-year employees. I mean, it was a very small team first couple of years, and then I think our retention's great, and there's not much turnover when it comes to that.
I think the fact that he and I are not the brewers, we weren't the founding brewers. We hire people to do a job, and we let them do it. We give them the tools necessary to do their job. They come to us as long as it makes sense with a good ROI, or it's going to help produce better beer. 9 times out of 10, we're going to agree with them and build it into our budget for the future. But I think that's a big part of it too. Is just let the experts do their job. We give them a vision, something that we want, and go get it.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.